almost a year ago, a coalition of housing groups, trade unions, musicians and actors took over NAMA-owned Apollo House to give refuge to homeless people. The building is now due to be demolished this week.
Now, Glenn Hansard was one of those people involved. He's here with us tonight to talk about how he sees our reaction to the homeless crisis almost a year on, along with actress and fellow activist Nellie Conroy and Unite Trade Union's Brendan Ogle. So, Glenn, a year on, was it worth doing?
Absolutely, it was worth doing. It was the most terrifying thing that I've ever gotten involved in, and I probably never felt more alive during that month, almost a month. You know, at Christmas time, coming up to Christmas, we always did busking. We do some gigs and, you know, do a couple of gigs in Vicar Street, give the money to Peter McVerry, give the money to Simon. And years of doing that and always sort of committing to it because, you know, I've got experience of it in my own family, conversations with friends, gathered around and, you know, in pubs, sometimes in cafes, sort of turned into a couple of meetings, which then suddenly turned into something that was just on. And it was Apollo House, and suddenly we were just sort of in there, and everything was like you're dealing with all these new friends that you've just made, and you're not sure where you stand with anything, but you know that it feels right, and it feels like something that's actually forward moving. And
so, what did you achieve with all of that, do you think?
Well, the main thing that I was concerned with was the conversation. It felt to me that homelessness was just like, you know, people would say to me, "Are you going to do your little busking thing again this year for the homeless?" And it's like, you know what, this is actually a really big thing. And I just lost an aunt the same year in Birmingham. She died on a park bench, God bless her. And it was, you know, I was impassioned, and I was looking around me going, why aren't people more, you know, because at Christmas time people's hearts open, right? There's a lot of compassion and empathy that comes forward at Christmas. People remember Great Expectations, they remember Scrooge, they remember the baby Jesus who was born among shit and straw. And, you know, they kind of remember this idea of people in poverty and the people who are left out in the cold. And so there is a kind of an opening of the heart around Christmas that's really necessary. And with the busk, I found personally, certainly with friends and associates in the music industry, that people were very willing to step forward.
Yeah, but what about official response and government and council and all the rest of it? Almost like, don't we have this under control, lads?
Oh, okay, yeah, absolutely. Did we get people off the streets for Christmas? No, we didn't. Did we get some of them off the streets for Christmas? Yes, we did. And did anyone die last year in Dublin? Actually in Ireland, nobody, in homelessness. And we have the highest winter mortality rate in the EU. 2,900 excess deaths due to, you know, people in old age, people in poverty. Poor people die in the winter. My own grandfather, my own grandmother, both died in winter. Poor people die in the winter. And so there's a lot of reflection, I think, in the winter, especially with working class people. And so there's and with all people, but there's a kind of a growing sense that this has all been kind of brushed under the carpet. And a year on, it feels like there's a definite, like, this doesn't exist, you know, going on.
Nellie, there are 70 voluntary NGOs, non-government organisations involved in helping the homeless, some of them doing a superb job, focus, Simon and so on. What did you learn from Home Sweet Home?
I think everyone got an education in what it's like to be homeless and the services that are provided for homeless people, like the hostels and the facilities that they have, and how they have to leave a hostel every day. You have no place 24 hours. All this was exposed, I think, through Apollo House to the general public and to us.
Did you find it was much more complex? Mental health problems, addiction problems?
Absolutely. You're always going to have people homeless with mental health problems and different issues, but the homeless problem here is we've so many people in emergency accommodation, we have children in hotels, we have people living at home that shouldn't be living at home anymore. So homelessness affects all of us now. And people are very potentially homeless now, whether they have a mortgage a little bit in arrears or whether they're renting. So it can affect all of us.
Brendan, did you have the skills to take on the responsibilities that were involved with the people that you were looking after?
I think the fairest way to answer that, Matt, is to record that every night of the year, this year, last year, every year, there are hundreds of people, citizens, with massive skills in there for a start, doing their best for homelessness. When we were coming here tonight, driving through Thomas Street, we drove by a soup run. people who were in there, like Oisin Fagan, like Neil McDonald, like Aisling Hederman, fantastic people, Tom Ryan. I could just go on and on. Need a show to name them. These are modern day heroes. Have they got all the skills? Have we got all the skills? I'm not a doctor. I'm not a solicitor, and as Nellie has just said, we're dealing with people in homelessness who find themselves sleeping on the street, who usually have serious mental health or addiction issues. So that's really, really difficult. We were trying to do things the other hostels didn't do. The volunteers in Apollo House, I mean the volunteers who were in there who surrendered at Christmas to do this, to provide a dry facility. None of the other hostels in Dublin are dry. To provide a place where couples could be safe and could cohabit. None of the other hostels can do that. So it was by no means a pantomime.
Yeah, do you think you tried to go and establish somewhere else? When Apollo House was taken away from you, there was a legal action taken for trespass and you were removed from it. I mean, did you think, given that you had accumulated quite a bit of money, there was an enormous amount of generosity from people, it was right there, that you could have done something else, like found another premises, hired the people, continued with the work?
Well, we looked into all of that, and Nellie has been spent a lot of our time this year working with a committee dealing with the fabulous generosity of the Irish public, all recorded. Not a minute Nellie deal with that, not a penny gone missing. Despite some of the things you read on social media, sometimes it can be really depressing and upsetting. The reality is, we knew from the outset, Matt. It's not our job. It's not a trade unionist's job. It's not a musician's job. It's not an actress's job. It's not even a volunteer job to house homeless. It's the government's job. And what we wanted to do was to focus public attention, support and love. Love. Are we allowed to say that on telly anymore? For our most vulnerable citizens, and highlight the fact that the government aren't doing their job. And the government are going to highlight it this week by telling NAMA to knock down that beacon of hope, and that's a real tragedy.
How many government ministers did you meet, and what did they tell you? What did they promise you?
I was down in Cork playing a gig for the Peter McVerry Trust, and I was sound checking and my phone rang, and I wouldn't usually answer a number that I don't know, but I just was like, I'll answer it, and hello, and it was Simon Coveney. Hello, oh, this is Simon, oh, geez, hello, okay, yeah, all right, how are you? And I was like, what's he calling? You know, and we had already been in for a couple of days at that point. He said, what are you doing? I says, well, we kind of felt like direct action was required, and so we stepped in. But that's my job. Yeah, but you're not doing it. Can we meet? And I was like, well, I better talk to the rest of it, because we were in a kind of a coalition, and the coalition was many-headed and many-opinioned, and there wasn't. It wouldn't be true necessarily to say that everybody in Apollo House agreed with the way forward. It was just there was a lot of stuff being kind of.
Like, I find it hard to be critical because you did strike a chord with the public. But Mannix Flynn, a councillor I respect, said it was a complete failure. Owen Keegan, the city manager, said it was a publicity stunt. Like, were you not guilty of naivety?
Absolutely, 100% guilty of naivety. But does that stop
I know it's not a crime.
No. Does that stop you from stepping up and going, you know what? I found myself around people who are really able.
Yeah, we need more naive.
We had the Irish Housing Network. We had people who are used to working in this area. We had energy. There was people who, and it was terrifying. Of course it was. I mean, it was, like I said at the beginning, it was the strangest month of my life, and I don't regret it for a second.
And what are you doing this year? Are you busking again this year now?
I'll busk again. Although actually last year we went to busk and we actually couldn't play. Usually we get stopped by the police anyway, because the police are really they're usually very good to us. But this year we went and there were so many people on Grafton Street that it was literally stopped, which was an amazing sign that I think it was more to do with Apollo House, to be honest, than it was the Christmas busk. But literally we couldn't play because it was unsafe. You could see it, and it was the one time I said to the policeman, "Can we sing one song?"
Sorry, why was it unsafe?
Too many people.
Too many people. The whole street was the whole street was shut down. Yeah. But there's the criticism that's been levelled at us is like doe-eyed idealism. You know what? I take that on the chin and go, absolutely, 100%.
And some questions have been raised, Nellie, about the proceeds of the money. Yeah. It all has been accounted for transparently. You gave the money to existing charities beyond Home Sweet Home.
Well, people that are from the grassroots, €77,000 left to be given out, and there are for grants of up to 5,000. So 37 groups will get their grants. There are people like outreach buses, people doing projects around homelessness, soup runs, families that are in need, hardship grants, and it's nationwide. Women's refuges, traveller groups.
So there's no issue there.
No issue about.
No issue of money not being accounted for.
Oh no,
or anything like
all
that.
the money's there.
Okay.
And
So
the
what
money-
are you going
and
to
by
do,
the way, the money
Brenda,
that's been
this
spent,
year?
the money that's been spent keeping Apollo House, the money that's been spent this year keeping people out of Apollo House is a lot more than we were given.
Hundreds of thousands of euros before the demolition happened.
What are we going to do? Well, I suppose Glenn's going to wake up in the morning and unpack his guitar and write some more music. And Nelly's just done a masters and she's going to continue to be an actress. And I'm going to go into a trade union office. And we want to continue to be connected with the absolute dysfunction that blights the streets of this city and this country.
As an advocate or what?
Well, we don't know. If you asked me what I was going to do this time last year, I wouldn't have been able to tell you. Apollo House is going to be knocked. And it's not because the government and NAMA just cannot stand the fact that that building would be lying empty while people are lying in the streets this Christmas. So I think, you know, we're going to give a little bit of thought about that. We're not going into Apollo House. Nobody needs to worry about that. But I think there is a place for direct action, and I think the wonderful volunteers, hundreds of them, and maybe there'll be a role for trade union people. It might be me, might be someone else. Maybe there'll be a role for artists.
Well,
but unless
Glenn,
citizens come together, the government won't deal with this.
Glenn, we didn't find out what Simon Coveney and yourself talked about when you met, but that's the past anyway. If Owen Murphy was on the back of seeing this programme tonight as the new housing minister, was to ring you and ask for a chat, what would you tell him?
Well, I mean, I don't really need to talk to Owen Murphy, to be honest with you. I think, you know, they're doing what they're doing, and I think they're digging.
Is it enough?
No, absolutely not. They're digging their own hole.
But could you not tell him what more you want him to do?
It's not. For me, it wasn't about trying to. See, I'm not a politician. I don't claim to be a politician.
No, but you're an interested citizen.
Absolutely, I am. With regard, you know, there was talk of trying to set up a housing co-op, and of course, there's a lot of good stuff being done in Ireland right now, in terms of, you know, we were trying to think up the idea of doing gigs, and, you know, how do we do this? Because the thing is, I didn't get into this to, you know, embarrass the government. I get into this to get people out of the cold. You know, to go back to the naivety of it all.
Yeah.
It was to get people out of the cold because...
Could you do a Live Aid, a Band Aid, a big concert like that?
We talked about it, and people offered us, you know, incredible support, but I never wanted it to be about, you know, here's a guy with a guitar trying to save Ireland. That's nothing to, it was nothing to do with that. It was, everybody who got involved in it for personal reasons.
Indeed. Listen, and thank you for all of you for a year on coming in and speaking to us this evening. We appreciate you doing so. We'll be back after the break for a look at tomorrow's front pages.